Hello, I'm back. Thank you to whoever finished off that survey for me and made my life easier so I do not have to pick. I will be giving a little update on this hospitalization, and yeah, that's what we're gonna do today for just a little bit. I apologize also if my voice or mannerisms or any of that is lagging a little. I did get IV Benadryl like less than an hour ago, so I have a high tolerance, but it does seem to affect my speech. Like stuttered there, but I'm gonna try my best. So I came in through the ER a few days ago, and that started when I had a really bad coughing jag in the morning. And coughing jags, just, you know, when you're essentially coughing nonstop for a long period of time and you can't catch your breath. And these coughing jags, for me, exert a lot of energy, and all that energy, you know, is stored throughout your body, including your heart. And so my heart kind of went into overdrive, aka tachycardia. And at that point, we had checked my oxygen and I was hypoxic. So what is, you know, being hypoxic, for those who don't know? Actually looked up a definition just to because I was like, I don't want to be wrong myself. And it says, an absence of enough oxygen in the tissues to sustain bodily functions. So essentially, like, you're just not getting enough oxygen, and because of that, your other organs, your everything in your body is going to be affected, because we need oxygen to live. So because of that, I was put on 4 liters of oxygen at home until we were ready to leave for the ER. We got here. I was still hypoxic when I got to the ER. I think a little less severe because the tachycardia had kind of gone down, but my oxygen levels were still pretty dangerous, so they kept me on 4 liters. As of today, I'm actually on 3 now, which is a win, because, you know, going down is great. The goal is to obviously get back to 0 and not need oxygen when I go home. So that's good news. I'm trying to think what else okay, I have a little list, don't mind me. Okay, yeah, so, okay, yeah, in the ER, what kind of goes on is they evaluate you. They looked at my vitals. My vitals were obviously not good because both my heart rate and my oxygen were in dangerous places. So that's kind of a huge factor they look at when you're being admitted, because I've actually been in situations where I feel really, really shitty, but if my vitals are fine, they will not admit me. However, in this case, I did feel shitty and I had shitty vitals. Thanks for making sense, buddy. And yeah, I was in the ER. It wasn't the worst ER stay I've gone through. They're all a little lengthy because it always just lags and takes a while. Once you get there to see different doctors and get approval to get admitted and then get up to a bed, if they even have a bed open. So yeah, I did, but it seemed pretty smooth this time. And they had even managed to get my antibiotics started down in the ER, which was good. However, that did mean going and getting my first dose of IV Benadryl during this stay, which for whatever reason knocked me like out. And I guess I wasn't expecting it, because I have been doing this like super intense Benadryl regimen for like the past 5 or 6 days. And when I say that, I mean being maxed out at 300 milligrams of IV Benadryl a day. So my body has built up a tolerance. And I am back to that tolerance now, but I don't know what it was, hit me like a bus in the ER. And of course, that is right when my nurse practitioner walks in. And because she's a nurse practitioner, obviously she's not full-on my pulmonologist, but she's also the person I see the most because she is most available. So all the shit you guys have seen about me complaining about like my doctors and stuff, it's about her. Even though she's technically not like a full, I don't know what you want to say there, but she comes in, sits down, and without getting into details, because it really doesn't matter, just was really, really difficult to talk to because one, I was slurring my words, couldn't keep my eyes open, you know, was fully drugged out, and I was trying to convey that to her and say, I can't do this right now, you know, and I just kept being interrupted and like kind of just deflected. So that was really frustrating, and the whole conversation was just very insensitive. They were not aware of my current situation, I guess coming from Cleveland, which this is where it just gets messy. Like, Cleveland didn't communicate, neither did my allergist, neither did my doctors, and so it all just becomes really, really messy all the time because apparently no adult in this freaking system knows how to properly communicate. And so when I'm saying this, because, you know, I saw my allergist in person the day before I went in, and she had told me, you know, specific things, and I told her, you know, this is what I want to do in terms of, you know, preventing allergic reactions with my antibiotics when I'm in, and I don't appreciate, you know, the lack of communication. Like, that is something that needs to be worked on. I'm very good at being very assertive in these situations. I've kind of, unfortunately, have learned that you need to be, or else you will not get what you need. So it did get heated, and as it always does, and you know, it was going back and forth about like oral Benadryl, IV Benadryl, and this, and my allergist and that. And at the end, I was just kind of like, you know what, I give up. I will wait till I talk to another doctor because I am clearly not even able to function right now. And the fact that she was still trying to continue this conversation with me and interrupt me at the same time while I was unable to really construct my sentences and form, you know, like thoughts that actually made sense. It just, I don't know, the whole thing was kind of just frustrating. But besides that, the ER was not that long. I wasn't down there terribly long, and I got up to a room. I'm on the floor I'm usually on, which is good. They typically do put CF patients all on the same floor with respiratory patients. They kind of do that in hospitals. They like separate different, I guess, conditions or organs, I guess, I don't know, in terms of like where you're placed in the hospital. So I am happy to be on this floor because I'm most comfortable here. I know the nurses, I know the respiratory therapists, I know, you know, which doctors are coming, what time they usually come. I know how everything works here. So it's always a relief when I can stay on the floor that I'm used to. I came in because I essentially went into hypoxia, which is just an extreme lack of oxygen to the point where your body cannot sustain, like, it can't function. Your tissues actually will not function after so long without oxygen. So I came in because I induced tachycardia with a coughing jag. And then once I was tachycardic, we realized my oxygen was like very, very low. It was like in the 70s, while my heart was hitting 160, which is extremely dangerous on both ends. So my dad drove me to the ER, and I was still hypoxic when I got there. It wasn't as severe, but it calmed down like a little bit, but I did still have a very high heart rate and low oxygen. So I was placed then on 4 liters of oxygen. Today, I think yesterday actually, they lowered it to 3. So that's awesome. Because it's only been a few days, and it's always good to hopefully get off of oxygen before I get home. That's my goal. Like, I don't like going home on oxygen because frankly, it's just a pain to wear and drag the cord around and everything at home. So I'm glad that, fingers crossed, we can get me off of it before I leave. I, in the ER, had a meeting with my nurse practitioner, who is essentially, when I refer to my doctors all the time, I'm likely referring to her. Even though she's not like she's not a full doctor. I just end up seeing her most often because she's more available than the other pulmonologists who have more on their plate. And so me and her do not really have the best relationship, as most of you who have followed me for a long time probably know. That, you know, the past year and a half or so has been kind of a shit show in terms of, you know, it's just always something. Every time I come here with the doctors, like, there's always something wrong. Somebody's not listening, or, you know, they're putting in the wrong orders, or accusing me of getting high off of Benadryl, or some other fucking bullshit. I don't know. She came in, and yet again, we are disappointed. So I had gotten a dose of IV Benadryl because were getting my antibiotics started in the ER, and which was a good thing, you know, to be able to start down there and not have to wait. But that first dose of Benadryl, for whatever reason, really knocked me out. And I only say this, and you're probably like, Ariel, like, of course it's gonna knock you out, it's IV Benadryl. I get it, but when you go in the hospital every other month, and for 2 to 3 weeks, you're on 300 milligrams a day of IV Benadryl, your body has definitely formed a tolerance, and I definitely have a tolerance. For example, last night I was given all my sleeping pills and IV Benadryl at once, and I was still up till at least 2:33, like wide awake. So yeah, that's, you know, I don't know, good and bad sometimes, but not the point. I was essentially too drugged to communicate effectively, but I was still trying because I didn't agree with what she said. And it just, the whole thing seemed really unfair because, you know, here's me in the ER, I had chest pain, I, you know, still felt very, very tight, heart feels like it's racing, and now I'm also drugged. And, you know, my eyes, like, your lids get very heavy. It's hard to speak, so I even say that now because I did get Benadryl like an hour-ish ago. So I'm sorry if I'm kind of a little too rambly, or if I can't think of a word, just bear with me. Doing my best because I did want to do this tonight. But anyway, so we tried to have a conversation, and it just turned into, you know, this back and forth of, well, my allergist said this, well, the allergist said this, and I just talked to her. And it was like, who said this? And this person said this, and, you know, no, you're wrong, they did that. It was like, just like this, like, tattletale bullshit. And I'm like, I am one, like, and I kept telling her too toward the end, I was like, you know, I can't do this. I can't do this right now because of my current, like, state. You know, like, I want to be competent and able to properly be assertive. in a like in communication and just in that situation in particular, because it's really important that I communicate my needs, because if there's anything any of you sick people know, it's that if we don't yell and scream our needs at the top of our lungs, they will not be met. So that is why I get so stressed. Yeah, that wasn't fun, but it is what it is. It passed. I got up to a floor, actually the floor that I like to be on. So, you know, that's great. They usually tend to put LCF patients on one floor, or just like pulmonary patients in general. And it's just nicer for me because I'm familiar with like the nurses and, you know, the different respiratory therapists and people that have seen me year after year after year. You kind of build those relationships when you're in here as much as I am, and everyone like knows if you're feeling miserable, like you're not going to want to deal with somebody that you don't trust or somebody who is rude or egotistical or any of those things. So I do appreciate being on a floor where I can at least kind of know what's going on in terms of like the staff. But yep, got up to the floor and kind of just continued the same ordeal. I got, you know, I had packed up all my stuff, just like a vacation, you know, you're packing your suitcase, and pack my hospital suitcase. And, oh yeah, I wanted, because I was like, you know what, like this can't just be boring. Like I gotta talk about what I bring to the hospital, like my hospital essentials. I, you know, have a few things that are pretty important to me. I always like to have like some things to make my room a little homey, because it does obviously get like really dehumanizing when you're just kind of like sitting in this ugly painted room. Like I don't know who picks the colors of these, but we're like, we couldn't do like a brighter blue or something more soothing. I don't know. Or just like something pretty, like something pretty would be cool too. Like dingy yellow and dingy blue aren't really like great, but that's not my point. Anyway, first, like little essentials outside of like the actual essentials. So I'm not talking about like clothing and hygiene and all that. I love to bring pictures of my friends or people who mean a lot to me, or bring objects that kind of represent them. So I'll do some examples here, and shout out to my best friend, Maddie. This frame has gone with me to so many appointments. Like, yeah, Ariel does bring this to appointments. Maddie knows that. And it has gone to transplant evaluations. It has gone to multiple hospitalizations here. It is just my reminder that my other half is in here in spirit. And, you know, it's important. Another one I brought, me and Kiki, my best friend who has CF, a reminder that I'm not alone in this illness. That is really, really important to me. Having somebody who has the same illness as me that can, you know, empathize and truly understand like what I'm going through. So important, so important. Didn't have a picture framed yet, but this is a cassette tape. You know, I kind of just like, sometimes they're frames, sometimes they're objects. I just like, whatever, you know, it's like an antique in here, because everything is just random objects everywhere. That's usually how like my little nightstand looks. And so I brought this cassette because it is my best friend's music, and it's, you know, she's very important to me, and I wanted a little piece of her with me as well. Anyone who knows me knows I'm also pretty spiritual, into crystals, all of that stuff. So there's one in particular that I always bring. It's Lepidolite, and that is supposed to aid with, you know, balancing your mood. And also, like, for some reason, like, sometimes just holding something heavy is grounding. And I think just like that tactileness of having little stuff to like grasp onto can be helpful. But yeah, that's, I mean, oh, and then, you know, usually like, gotta have the Squishmallows. They're comfortable and hospital beds aren't, so that's the deal there. Well, in terms of the Benadryl, it's always an issue. It has been for the last couple stays, and it's been very stressful. And I was stressed going into it. I was stressed talking to my nurse practitioner about it because they were trying to change it. My allergist has tried to change it, and I'm sitting here like, will you just listen to me? I know my body best. And you know, that just, it never happens. They just usually go and do what they want. And unfortunately, I'm the one who has to pay those consequences. And this time, guys, which I know I posted, but if anyone missed it, I had a very good experience with one of my doctors, not the nurse practitioner, but an actual pulmonologist who runs in the CF clinic. And she sat down and essentially let me talk for like 30 minutes straight. And I was, you know, very frank, and some of it I know was definitely not gonna be fun to hear on her end. But I really, really appreciated that she listened to me, because these days it is so hard to get doctors to listen. They get very caught up in like trying to fix the problem, that the sense of humanity and like empathy and the fact that we have feelings, all of that's just kind of like out the window. And even she like admits that. She even said to me like, yes, I'm a fixer. I want to fix things. And I was telling her, you know, it's not always about fixing things. Sometimes it's about sitting down and listening to your patient and what your patient has to say about the treatment process, because sometimes that really makes the bigger difference of, hey, I feel like I'm being heard. I feel like my body's being respected, not just kind of thrown around or being tested on. And it's, you know, just a complete 180 from what I've experienced before. So that was like, honestly, the biggest relief of my life for a long time. And it felt really, really good. It was great. I was proud of myself. I think I delivered everything I had to say, and I really did like say everything I had to say. Didn't hide anything or censor anything. But I did it in a way that was respectful enough that I think it did get through to her, or at least it got through a little more than it would have, per se, my nurse practitioner, because I guarantee I would have been interrupted like a million times had it been her. Anyway, that was a win. Big win, and a big release of stress for me, which has made like the biggest difference. Oh my God, I can't even tell you guys, like, it's just, I mean, those of you who have followed me for a long time know how stressed I get on like every single day. You're probably like looking at my story every single day, like, why the hell, like, is she like literally crying every single day and, you know, saying this and their doctors aren't doing this, and you're, I don't know, I get messages all the time like, what the fuck is going on with your care team? And I'm like, hell if I know. Like, I wish I knew. That being said, yeah, it's going well. I haven't seen either of them like since those conversations yet. So I am a little nervous for like whenever I see Leah, who's the nurse practitioner, or when I see my doctor again, because you just never know sometimes with them. Like they'll just kind of flip on you and change your mind. And it can be really frustrating and scary. So, but anyway, that made a really big difference. And I did want to like kind of connect that to my mental health, because I've been weirdly, like very weirdly doing well. And, you know, it's a good thing and I'm going to take it for what it is. But, you know, I've had a hellish, you know, past 2 weeks almost. Maybe not exactly 2 weeks. I think it's more like a week and a half. But the fact that I got this, you know, terrifying prognosis and then had to come into the hospital right after, just, you know, it doesn't go well together. So it's, you know, I think honestly, like as small as it is, like that very instance has made all the difference. We are sticking to my routine that I feel comfortable with, which feels good. And I haven't reacted. So that's a win again, because you just never know. Well, you know, I reacted in the ER, but not since I've been on the floor and since we switched my routine back to what it needed to be. But anyway, I have a little list. Sorry if I keep looking over here. Oh, I did want to note though that as well as it may seem like I'm doing, I don't always feel like I am completely able to feel or process feelings in the hospital. Is something that has been pretty consistent the past few years. And I think it just is a result of a lot of trauma and my PTSD. I usually tend to just numb out when I'm in these situations. Like everything that I was feeling at home has not carried over. So it's been kind of odd, because I went from kind of hysterically crying every day for hours and hours and hours to, you know, feeling this positive attitude and being soft-spoken with my doctors and, you know, not having, I don't know, like these outbursts of just pain and sadness and grief. So I will say that I think a lot is being repressed unintentionally. Like it's not me consciously doing it, but it just happens now because of how traumatic things in here, like how things have been in here. I can't talk. Okay, how things have been in the hospital. Like, it's just, okay, wow, I really can't talk. But ignore that. I just am grateful that things did go the way they did, because more stress is like the last thing I need at the moment. I need to focus on myself. I need to focus on self-care. I need to focus on my fundraiser. You know, focus on things that like matter to me. I'm actually like feeling very inspired to like get back into writing now. Shout out to Porchista for helping me in every way possible in the past week and just being such a big support system. For those of you who haven't read any of her books, they are lovely. But yeah, anyway, while I'm here, what usually goes on is, you know, I get extra airway clearance, so just extra treatments. So what I do at home are, you know, machines that shake up the lungs to try to excrete the mucus. Because essentially, like, why I end up in here is because my lungs are filling up with mucus, and then the mucus is sticky and thick, right? And so all the bacteria sticks to the mucus, but then the bacteria, you know, multiplies and it becomes an infection. And that's why it's really, really easy for people with CF to get sick, and we have to be really careful with, you know, how we handle ourselves. Like, why COVID was absolutely freaking terrifying for all of us, because it's like, we already have lung conditions, and then it's like, on top of this, now we have to worry about another illness that could like actually wipe out our lungs. But so a lot of those precautions I still take, like masking and all of that, which we actually do in CF world, like prior to COVID. So I had a mask before COVID even started, just completely ahead of the trend. But yeah, so that's that. What do I like do in here other than that? Not much, because it's pretty much just being hooked up to an IV. You know, and for the length of my stays, it's usually, you know, they'll say 10 to 14 days, but for me now, it is usually 14 to 21. When I first got diagnosed, I had a lot of stays that were like 10 days. Now it's usually a minimum of 14 for me to get in more of that antibiotic and try to get my numbers and my lung function higher if possible. So, and sometimes my body also just needs extra rest. So, or I guess not rest, because it's not like you ever sleep in here, but, you know, just not exerting myself. But that's really like, there's not much to it, really, other than airway clearance and, you know, taking your normal meds, and other than the fact that you're stuck here in a room for, you know, 2 weeks, sometimes up to a month for me. It's kind of up to you on how you handle it, and I feel like I am pretty good. I feel like I'm a fucking pro at doing this, and that's why I was so, you know, just I was so proud, you know, like when COVID came around, because I was like, everyone doesn't know what to do with themselves, you know, like they're all, you know, isolated and can't keep themselves busy, and I'm like sitting here like, I trained my life for this. Like, I'm like, I can read 10 books in 2 weeks, and I can binge watch a show, watch a million horror movies, because horror movies are my absolute favorite. And especially when you're in the hospital, pro tip here, even if you're not in the hospital, I just mean if anything possibly bad happens to you, watch a horror film. Like, watch a horror film, because that way you are focusing on somebody else's life being a nightmare. And for a moment, your life isn't a nightmare, it's somebody else's. So, I don't know, something I like to do. Also, yeah, so got that. Oh, love decorating my room. Love decorating my room. Gotta make it exciting. Like, if you're gonna be here for this long, you might as well make it homey. Like I said, obviously I bring that stuff, like sentimental stuff with me, but like, for instance, this time it's my 40th hospital stay, and I said, hey, let's have fun with this. And, you know, my mom picked me up some balloons and some streamers, and we went to town. And, you know, I think it's like those moments where, like, if you really just try to, you know, be more lighthearted about the situation and not take things so seriously all the time, it can really make a difference in getting by. And, you know, just dancing around my room and, you know, throwing balloons on the wall and just completely goofing off with, like, my respiratory therapist. We were literally using the oxygen pumps they have on the wall, like, for these to fill up balloons. because clearly I can't blow a fucking balloon. But it's those things that, like, honestly, like, they're like the moments you remember. And, you know, with that, I like really want to point out, like, hospital stays are not inherently bad. Like, they really aren't. And like, I honestly, like, sometimes I come in here and it's like, unless, you know, I'm having issues with my team, I don't mind it. In fact, sometimes I like it because I'm like, you know what? I don't have the responsibility of doing all this. Everyone's doing it for me, and I just get to sit here and read all my favorite books and draw and write and FaceTime all my friends and watch movies. So, you know, like, it really, again, it's all perspective. And I'm not saying it's not a bad place sometimes, because there are times where this place has been absolutely traumatic. And I just wanted nothing to do with it. But there also have been good times, and I think both of those, you know, balance each other out. But I think the good times need to be noted more because not enough people talk about it. Or talk about even just like the comfort of sharing like jokes with your nurse, or I don't even know. These respiratory therapists, some of them have known me since I was 15. And so, you know, we really have close relationships, especially, you know, the sicker I get and the more I'm in here, those relationships just kind of grow and grow and grow. And obviously it's not like a normal friendship, but it's definitely, you know, it's like they can tell when I'm not myself. They can tell when I'm having a bad hospital stay or when I'm having a good one. And I've had some be, you know, just like really go out of their way to help me. And I want to point out like the good people like that too, because I feel like, admittedly, I do bitch a lot about, you know, my CF team. And I don't say enough how great some of like the nursing staff is, or, you know, the respiratory therapists. Oh my God, like some of them are like my best friends. So I guess, you know, keep that in mind. Like, we don't want to be pitied just for being in the hospital. Like, we don't want you to come visit us in the hospital and walk in and be like, oh my God, you're so sick, poor you, like, blah, blah, blah. No. Like, I'm freaking scootering on my IV pole. Like, we're having a time, you know? So, I don't know. I try to make it the best experience I can. And that's, like, really all you can do. It truly is. And, again, I think I'm kind of completely disconnected from everything I learned at Cleveland. And that disconnect is kind of weird, but I don't think there's any harm in embracing, you know, the lighthearted joy that I feel right now, because, you know, whether I have to deal with it later or not, like, why wouldn't I take the good for now? That's not gonna go away. That's not gonna change anything. So, like, being miserable now just because I feel weird about feeling good isn't going to make anything in the future, or for the past that matter, you know, change. So, I don't know, like, being miserable just for the fact that you're in the hospital is not worth it. You know, like, it's just not. It's not worth your energy. And because you can make it a good place, you really can. And I believe I have. So, you know, like, it's just what you do with it. My health really hasn't changed much since I came in. And I haven't really expected it to. It's only been a few days. I think it's kind of funny. Some of the doctors walk in like the second day you're here and they're like, oh, have you stopped coughing yet? And you're like, I have CF, and also no, like, I got here yesterday. But that's, I'm trying to think, yeah. Oh, wow, this is really long. I'm going to wrap it up. I just want to say also a big thank you to everyone who has supported me through any hospital stay, because so many of you have been so kind, and I know I can't always respond in length to everybody, and admittedly, like right now I'm like very distant with people, even close friends I'm very distant with, and I know that can probably be frustrating, but it truly is because I don't have the capacity right now. That's why I'm trying to maybe do these videos more often so I can kind of, I guess, in my own way, delegate sharing that news, you know? So if I do updates and explain things on here for everyone to hear at once, it's a little easier than me individually having to tell everybody. But on that note, I think I covered everything that's really like relevant or, you know, like new, because nothing is really different about what I'm doing here as of right now. I will definitely let you guys know once I get like, if I get pulmonary testing or if we do anything like that. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. But yeah, thank you if you lasted a whole, almost an hour here. But I just thought it would be helpful to explain some things, because like, I don't expect everybody to understand CF or no CF. Nobody, like I didn't know CF before I had CF. So again, just trying to be helpful. But on that note, I will actually be going now because I'm getting tired. And my throat's really dry because the air in here is just not good. But thank you for listening, and I will obviously try to keep everything updated, keep donating, keep fundraising. Everyone, like, just keep sharing, like, please. It really, really helps. Like, it truly does. Like, even today, like, when I just asked, like, hey, can you guys like repost this again? I got like, I don't even know how many more donations, and it's just, it truly means the world to me, and would actually save my life, possibly, or at least make it more comfortable, and give me and my family a little break from the financial stress of having to deal with all this constantly. So I really do hold that to my heart and appreciate anyone who takes the time to actually watch these videos, because now they're just growing and growing in length, and I promise to not like hit an hour. But on that note, I've said on that note so many times, I'm sorry, that's the Benadryl. Like, literally, that's where my head just keeps going. Like, it can't function clearly. But thank you so much, and I wish the best for everyone, and yeah.